The time is 7:02, and if everyone could please rise, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States
of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, just a reminder that we will be operating under Governor Baker's issued order suspending provisions of open meeting, which was authorized and issued on March 12th, 2020. Every vote will be taken via roll call vote, which I'll remind everybody of every time we do it. Moving on, so that we can stay on time here. Well, I guess we have to wait 2 more minutes. I have 7:03. So why don't we?
You could do a couple of new business items, Jim, if you'd like,
Yeah.
or Ben, if you'd like.
You want to try that? Let's see. Vote. Okay, let's go to new business number 1. Jim Johnson, if you could walk us through that.
Sure. This is a request for a granted location for a pole relocation at 1925 Washington Street. This is kind of a little unique one, just because it's located right in someone's driveway right in front there. And the residence is asking for it. Carl Baldoff, town engineer, sent us a letter on this one. We're recommending approval of this request from his department. And everybody's ready to move. We're just waiting on the board to act. So it's been vetted on our end and it's good to go. You're on mute.
We have any comments from the board? We'll just go in the order that I see you here. Nobody raising their hand. Anybody comment from the board? All right, fantastic. I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to grant the request from NStar Electric to relocate the pole at 1925 Washington Street as approved by our town engineer.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a second, motion and a second. We'll go by a roll call vote. Nancy?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
And Ben? Aye. That's 4-0-0.
Thank you.
And I'll take this opportunity to just note that David Salvatore has notified us tonight that he's not going to be able to be in attendance. So it'll be the 4 board members who are on right now for the duration of the meeting. Okay, thank you, Jim. Moving back to the public hearing, being the time is 7:05, we have a public hearing for transfer of annual wines and malt beverage common victualers license from Soho Restaurant Inc. to Gannon Walpole Inc. Sakura. And so Jim Johnson, is all the paperwork in order there and been satisfied?
Yeah, on our end, this is actually IFA's first transfer year, so it was a good practice run. Everything's been.
Point of order. We're going to make a motion to open the public hearing first.
Okay, very good.
Sorry, I should have been quicker. I'm sorry. I'll make a motion to open the public hearing for the transfer of the annual wines and malt beverage common victualers license from Soho Restaurant to Gannon Walpole Inc., doing business as Sakura.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and we'll do our roll call votes. So we'll go through. Nancy?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Jim?
Aye.
And Ben? Yes, 4-0-0. Thank you, Nancy. I steamrolled right past that. So, the public hearing for the transfer of the victualers license. Jim Johnson, you were saying that everything is in order here?
Yeah, on our end, we're all set to go, and everything's lined up. I would note that I believe it was yesterday, we got an application for an entertainment license for the same location. They realized that the TV and radio that's there they'd like to keep that. So I'd ask at the end of this for the board to consider allowing them to do that. But first, Aoife, did I miss anything? I don't think so.
Nope, no, that's everything.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, great. And is there any further comment from board members? Raise your hand if so. Okay, great. I would entertain a motion, please.
I will make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
And we will close the public hearing via roll call votes. Nancy?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Ben? Aye. 4-0-0.
I will make a motion to approve the transfer of the annual wine and malt beverage common vicular license from Soho Restaurant, Inc. to Gain & Walpole, Inc., doing business as the Cora.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. And we'll have a roll call vote. Nancy?
Yes.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
And Ben? Aye. 4-0-0.
So Ben, if I could just, before you move on to the next item, as I mentioned, they applied for an entertainment license for one TV and radio music. Previous owner had the same items there. I'd like to request, so we don't make these folks come back, just to grant that approval for an entertainment license for a TV and a radio.
So moved.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. We'll have a roll call vote. Nancy?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
And Ben? Aye. 4-0-0. All right, thank you, Jim.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
All right, so we move on to the next agenda item, which is Police Chief Carmichael. We have John with us. Yep, we do. We need to hold off on that one for a couple minutes, or do we have everyone we need here, Chief?
We have everybody.
Okay, take it away.
Good evening, everyone. Hope you fared through the storm okay. Moved quickly, but it hit us pretty hard. I just want to thank the board for having us in tonight. We have 3 officers that graduated from the police academy, and unfortunately it happened to be right during the pandemic. And so typically when, officers graduate from the police academy, they have a very formal graduation ceremony. And, these officers were not able to do that because of the pandemic. So I appreciate you allowing them to come in tonight, and so that the board could recognize them and just recognize their achievement of getting through the academy. Officer Pat Baker, he's already completed his 12 weeks of field training officer, and he's out on his own now, as well as Officer William Mitchell. Both of them have completed their 12-week field training officer program, and they're doing very well. And Officer Rick Ordway is completed his first phase of field training officer, and he's moved into his second phase. So in the next eight weeks or so, he'll be out there on his own as well. So they're here. It's going to pan over to join us tonight. And you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Rick Ordway.
Officer Mitchell. Officer Patrick Baker.
So the new officers are all Walpole boys and ready to serve the community, and we really appreciate what they've done so far and look forward to what they'll do in the future.
That's great. That's great. Well, thank you all 3 of you for joining us tonight, and we appreciate you having you on board. Usually we like to go through and have a little discussion, hear from you, but we appreciate you taking the time to be with us tonight. Are there any other members of the board that have something that they would like to say? Raise your hands. No? Jim O'Neill, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to say welcome and look forward to working with you. Thanks for what you're doing and for being willing to protect us as a community. Thank you.
Mark?
I would just say congratulations, and I look forward to meeting you out on the street. And glad that you're on board.
Great. Nancy?
Again, just welcome, and, sorry you had to graduate under such horrible circumstances, but we're all very lucky to have you. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, everyone. Ben, did you want me to go right into the next item?
Go right ahead, Chief. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So this evening, we recognized 5 police officers from the Walpole Police Department, and we awarded them with the Medal of Valor, which is a distinctive, very distinguishing award. It's the highest award of the Walpole Police Department. And over the past 6 months during the pandemic, it didn't stop police work from happening. And so we had several situations where our officers responded to very difficult situations. And as a result of these situations, tonight we awarded them with the Medal of Valor. Chairman Barrett came to the ceremony here at the police station, and Jim, we've presented them with those awards. We have Officer George Bird, who responded to an emotionally disturbed person call for a person with a gun inside of a neighborhood, which that was an extensive search, which that person was ultimately located and a firearm recovered. We have Officer Rich Haber and Officer Nicole Gennard responding to an emotionally disturbed person call with a person on a roof, and that they de-escalated that situation and brought that person to safety and made sure that they were given the right and proper resources to help them with the situation they were facing. And then we have Officer Michelle Slavin, Officer Nicole Gennard again, and Officer now Detective Steve Foley, who responded to the armed robbery call, which came in as a hold-up alarm at Cumberland Farms on Main Street. That resulted in a pursuit once Officer Slavin observed the vehicle involved, and they pursued that vehicle to Route 1, where it crashed, and ultimately 3 individuals bailed out of that vehicle. There was a foot pursuit with Officer Gennard involved. Officer Slavin and Officer Foley had flanked that the suspects, and Officer Gennard, Officer Foley, and Officer Slavin were able to take one of the suspects into custody. We did recover a significant amount of evidentiary value items, and subsequently Detective Bethany continued the investigation, was able to identify the other 2 suspects. So all 3 had been on a crime spree of armed robberies in the area. All 3 have since been arrested and charged with these crimes. And because of each of these incidents over the past 6 months, we wanted to recognize them for their commitment to the community and keep our community safe and acting in these situations with just no hesitation. So they're also here behind me. And do you guys just want to introduce yourselves real quick? Start with Officer Foley.
Good evening, my name is Stephen Foley.
Good evening, Rich Haber.
Good evening, George Bird.
Good evening, Nicole Gennard. Good evening, Michelle Slavin.
Mute, Ben. Ben, mute.
I know. It's been a busy evening already. It was great to see all of you tonight at the ceremony. Congratulations again, and thank you so much, not only for your actions on the evenings in question, but for the work that you're doing for the police department. And we'll go around here to the other select board members as well. Jim O'Neill, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I mean, congratulations. And I'm so pleased that we're taking the time to recognize the great work that our police officers do in the community every day. And whether it's chasing down the bad guys in the woods, like Officer Gennard and others did, or whether it's everyday community policing, you do a tremendous job. And I just couldn't be more pleased with the way Chief Carmichael has the department running. And I'm absolutely thrilled to see that we're, recognizing when people merit, through their brave acts, to be recognized in the way we're doing tonight. So thank you and congratulations.
Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Jim said. I would just say thank you for all your fine work in protecting the citizens of Walpole. And it's always great when I'm out to, see the fine work that you're doing. I especially like the whole community policing idea, and see you're interacting with the residents and the kids and all the activities that are going on in town. So congratulations and thank you.
Great. And Nancy?
Just great job, everybody. These last few months have been even more hard to work than have ever in the past. And with the way the country's been treating and talking about treating police, it's not right, it's not kind, but yet you guys go to work every single day and do your job. And, most of us really, really appreciate it. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much again.
Thank you, everybody. And we were also very quick to recognize all the other officers that were involved in those situations as well. Obviously a lot of times it takes a lot of teamwork and collaboration, and usually it's just luck of the draw which officer ends up having to be the one that has to engage and have to be the one that has to follow the next steps in any given situation. So obviously police work's very dynamic and unfolding circumstances happen constantly. So we appreciate the board and recognizing them, and as well, and we're very gratified to all of the officers that have taken these situations and had to deal with them. So thank you.
Great. All right, we could go ahead and move on to the third item on your agenda here, Chief, when you're ready.
Okay, thank you very much. Very appreciative to the board and the town of Walpole, town meeting, Jim, everybody. As you know, part of our strategic plan is to move the department ahead and grow the department with the growth that we're seeing occur in the town of Walpole. So part of that includes additional officers and personnel, and also making sure that our command staff is up to par as well. So we had requested a lieutenant position, and for a lot of various reasons, because of just the organizational chart and the way the department and the major components of the department are broken up. And so this lieutenant position is going to be in charge of all of our community services, which is quite extensive. We're talking about the equipment of the department. We're talking about all of the special events, road races, and any type of a community event, and a lot of other of the logistical stuff that takes place in the department. So we had Sergeant Becker, Sergeant Benner, and Sergeant John White, who were the top candidates for this position. This was a very difficult decision to make because they are all absolutely fine officers. I guess it's a good thing that it's a difficult decision to make. Several board members did have the opportunity to interview all three of the sergeants that are going for lieutenant. In the end, myself and Deputy Chief Kelleher, Lieutenant Zangetti, and Lieutenant Kilroy also interviewed them, and we came to the conclusion that Sergeant John White would be our recommendation to the board, as he's just demonstrated, everything that we've needed him to do. He did achieve the highest mark on the assessment center, and he's been a police officer here since 2005. He's been a sergeant since 2011 when he started as patrol sergeant. He's also worked as an administrative sergeant, doing some of the duties that will be expected of him in the future. So this includes special event planning, licensing. He writes the grants for the department, which is very helpful for increasing our staffing and doing the things enforcement-wise that we want to do. He's a veteran of the United States Army, and he has a bachelor's degree from UMass in legal studies, a master's from Curry College in criminal justice, and he holds a Juris Doctor degree from the New England School of Law. He's very well trained. He's the author of the very popular Cops Corner in the Walpole Times, which he still submits. And he just has incredible work ethic and dependability, attention to detail, the things that we really need administratively here in the department. So I ask the board's consideration in accepting our recommendation for Sergeant White to the position of lieutenant.
Hello, Sergeant White. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Fine. Typically, the way that we do this is to have a little bit of a discussion. So I know it's a little awkward on Zoom with everybody in different boxes, but if you could go ahead. I know that you had the opportunity to speak with a couple of the members of the board prior to tonight, but if you could go ahead and say again, you know, your interest in the position and a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my name is John White. Like the chief said, I've been here for the last 15 years. I've been in public service now since I was 18 years old when I joined the military in the first place. You know, I've really enjoyed working in this department. I think that we have a great organization, a great group of people. The town is fantastic. My family's been in the town since 1999, and my mother actually still resides in the town. The people in the town have been very supportive of us. We have a great community policing program. I'm excited to be a part of it and to now be in charge of it going forward with your consent. And I just think that right now, you know, we need to continue to do what we've been doing community policing wise. I think that the Chief Carmichael has established a community policing program in this department that is really at the forefront and is an example for other departments. And I think that that's what we need more than anything right now with what's going on in policing. And again, I really appreciate the opportunity, and I look forward to continuing to further my career in Walpole.
Great, thank you so much. So we'll go around now with the board members. Let's go in the same order as last time. Jim O'Neill, if you'd like to start, please.
Yeah, good evening, Sergeant White. I have to say that I wholeheartedly support the nomination to promote you to lieutenant in the force. And I'm going to say a couple more words about that in a second, but I also wanted to say that I thought both Sergeant Becker and Sergeant Benner did an outstanding job in the interview process. And Chief, you've got some deep bench there, and this is really, really good for the future of the department. And I was very impressed with all three. But Sergeant White, I totally agree that you're the right choice at this time. Your background is incredible with the law degree and with the years of experience on the force. I think you told me 6 years as a patrolman, 9 years as a sergeant, and 5 years on the command staff, which really nicely prepares you for the next step up. I thought your command presence was superb in the interview that we had, and I thought you answered my questions very thoroughly, and I was just very impressed with how you answered the questions. So I want to congratulate you on the nomination and wish you the best. I'm sure you're going to be a fine lieutenant.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jim. Mark?
I agree with everything that has been said so far. I really enjoyed our time on the Zoom call where we got to talk about some of the policing issues and some of the issues in Walpole. I also agree with Jim on Sergeants Becker and Benner. Were really outstanding candidates. I enjoyed speaking with them about the same issues. So I think you make a fine lieutenant, and you're going to get my vote. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Nancy?
I just want to say congratulations, John. You're going to do a fabulous job, and the other two candidates are awesome too. But congratulations, John.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Nancy. And I would just echo what everyone said, Sergeant White. I appreciate you submitting yourself to this process, making yourself available to the additional interviews, the independent party reviews as well, through what is really a thorough process. So now we've wrapped up, I would entertain a motion.
And Ben, I'll do the motion. So I move that we promote Sergeant White to the position of lieutenant in the Walpole Police Force.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. We'll have a roll call vote. Nancy?
Yes, sorry.
Thank you, Nancy. Mark?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Ben? Aye. So there's a 4-0-0. Congratulations. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks, we're just gonna pin him real quick.
Thanks, Chief.
Congratulations.
Thank you all again.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Let's take some of the fun out of it doing it on Zoom, I have to admit.
It's definitely a challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. So the last item here, Chief Carmichael, is quarterly report.
Yes, thank you very much. So this quarterly report's a little bit different than the traditional quarterly reports we've done in the past. Back several months ago after the last quarterly report, when Jim was at the chair position, he had mentioned that he'd like to see us just bring a little bit of a discussion to the board about community policing. And in light of everything that's recently been going on in the police world, I think that that can also translate into what's being done for 21st century policing, something that we also practice and something that's involved in our mission and vision and values of the Walpole Police Department. So I can get into that with, Ben, I brought this up because I remembered that Jim had mentioned it. I brought it up with Ben, and Ben agreed and suggested that we continue with the same discussion. And so I'm ready to talk about that tonight.
Yeah, that's great. Go ahead, please.
Okay. Sure. So we're going to back up a little bit, just go back, back to about 2014, 2015 timeframe. The big question when I was becoming chief is, how do you measure police performance? And the traditional way, when I was coming up as a patrolman, was that, you make arrests and you write citations and you write summonses for court, and they are very tangible, like statistics, and that's what kind of measured a police officer's performance in the police department. But the community policing philosophy doesn't accept that. The community policing philosophy, the performance of the police department is measured by the community and by the community's perception of their department. And they determine what the effectiveness of their police department is. So community policing it's a philosophy that the strategies of it have to be accepted by the community. There has to be buy-in within the department, and it has to be something that's performed from the chief down through the dispatchers and the civilian employees. It has to be a very holistic approach, tailored to each community. And the way that it happens is that it has to have community input. Community input has to set the police agenda, not the police chief. It comes from the Board of Selectmen, who are the commissioners of the police department, and it comes from the community. And so the way we did that was back in 2014-15 timeframe, we did a citizen survey. We sent the survey out in the census report to save money, because it actually helped us. We didn't have to pay for the postage and everything. So we were hoping to get back a few hundred responses, but what we ended up getting back was over 3,000 responses from Walpole residents. And that's each household. There's only one to each household. So that's pretty amazing. And the buy-in, the community wanted to help us set that agenda. And I'll be honest with you, we listened to it and we took it to heart. And a lot of the stuff that you saw in there was that they wanted to see the police department adapt and to engage the community more, especially the youth and the senior citizens. They wanted us to develop partnerships. They wanted us to be more problem-solving oriented, and they wanted this to be an organizational change, like a transformation in the department. And so we started to do that. And if you look at some of the issues we've been dealing with, whether it be substance abuse, whether it be emotionally disturbed person calls, mental health, whether it's domestic violence, those types of situations many times used to end in arrest. And what we found is that arrest wasn't solving the problems. And community policing is all about identifying the underlying issues and using resources and the police department proactively curbing these things so that they don't reoccur. So mental health, for example, one of our most frequent calls now, we have all the resources through the Community Crisis Intervention Team, where we have Riverside and DMH and the fire department, and we have parents in the community that come together and we try and address the mental health issues together. Substance abuse, where we, years ago, we thought we were going to wrest our way out of the substance abuse problem. Well, we can't. That was a complete failure. So what we have to do is we do outreach, and we scenes of an overdose, we work with the family and the individual and go back with the resources and provide outreach so that we can get them into treatment and actually deal with the underlying problems. And even domestic violence, where we have domestic violence officers, we meet with people, the victims, and we do follow up for high risk situations where we can get a victim witness advocate involved to help us steer that person and to steer even the abuser away from what they're doing and try and deal with situations that way. So then it comes to the point where how do you actually develop ways and opportunities to engage the community? Because that's the biggest hurdle, right? Is developing that mutual trust. And how are we going to engage with different members of the community? And so what we did is we came up with programs. We came up with programs such as our positive ticket program, where we did my computer go off there?
We lost your screen, but we can still hear you.
There I am. Sorry.
Okay.
Engaging the community, we came up, especially with youth, we came up with different programs such as positive tickets, where we catch kids doing right. And that creates an opportunity for us to stop and meet with a kid and I introduce ourselves and recognize them for positive behavior. We have positive t-shirts. We put another SRO in the schools who happens to have a golden retriever with them through the Golden Opportunities for Independence, where we use a community resource dog with our community resource officer that has many documented situations of helping to de-escalate situations and calm situations down. We have, having the new police station where we have the basketball court and the street hockey stuff across the street, where we can invite kids in the neighborhood to come down and we can engage them that way. And so there's all these different programs that we started up over the years that are designed to engage different members of the community. We think that we've got the thing nailed down and we're doing a good job. And in fact, we've been recognized nationally through the concerns of through the Community Policing Services, the national DOJ site, for our positive tickets, for our Drug and Alcohol Coalition, for our Student Police Advisory Council, where we work with high school kids. And we've also, last year, we received the Community Policing Award from the New England Chiefs of Police. And this year, we're the finalists in a national award with the U.S. Attorney's Office for distinguished work in policing and community policing. So we work very hard at it, and that we couldn't do it on our own. It takes, we appreciate the support of the board, the support of Jim, and it's just a constant, perpetual thing of engaging the community, trying to develop mutual trust, and that's kind of what it's all about, as far as the philosophy. And it's all encumbered in our mission and our vision and values, which are all based on what the community asked of us.
Great. Well, thank you for that, Chief. Why don't we go to the board members now? Nancy, if you'd like to kick us off, please.
I'm all set.
Okay. Mark?
I'll just say, Chief, you know that I'm a big supporter of community policing, and love to see the officers out at all the activities and all over Walpole. I think you're doing all the right things, and I love the fact that you continue to adapt and evolve as situations change within the town of Walpole. So I would just say great job to you and the department.
Thank you, Mark. Jim O'Neill.
Yeah, and Chief, thanks very much for talking to us about this tonight. The reason I asked you to do this, back when I was in the chair, was I sensed that there was a lack of knowledge in the community about what you're really doing in the community policing program. We see it all the time because you give us constant updates, and we see the programs you're running and so forth. But I wanted the broader community to hear about it, and therefore thought that this would be a good venue to do that in. I happen to think that you do a just outstanding job in this regard. And if I go back to the strategic plan that you took us through probably 4 months ago now, but that was such a central component of your strategic plan. There are other components as well, but the community policing and the policing in the 21st century are central components. And your philosophy as chief, I think, resonates well within the department. And I see it when we have things like these interviews, which we had with, for the lieutenant and for the deputy chief role. And when I hear the candidates talk about the role of police officers in the community, how to engage, when you have to be tough, when you have to be empathetic, how do you make those decisions? And I have to say, I'm always so impressed by the way that they're able to articulate how to think about that as an officer on the police department. And I think that's a direct reflection of your leadership and the philosophy that you bring to the game. I also think you live it. I see you out there playing street hockey, and I see you out there riding the bike in the community and, really engaging. And I think that's really critically important. I don't know how many police chiefs actually take it to that level, but you really do. So you not only talk the talk, you walk the walk. And I think that's very important. You said it well when you said engagement is really at the heart of all of it. And how the community views the police department is critically important. And I liked the fact that you started the discussion by bringing us all the way back to the survey and what you heard from 3,000 responses to the survey. Was it 3? I guess it was 3,000. Yeah, 3,000 responses to the survey, and how you then took those and built them into the effort itself. And again, we see that in the strategic plan and the strategic vision. So all of that's just really, really important. If I think back to this past summer with the police academy for the kids that you run, and I think you had 30-something kids go through that program this year, and the feedback out of that program is really incredible. That's a way to engage, to really demonstrate to the kids what the police are really all about, what the role in the community is all about, and show them what we're doing here in Walpole, again under your guidance. So I think that's really, really important. And I'm just very pleased with the way things have come together here in the last 4 or 5 years, 6 or 7 years now, really, under your guidance. And, you're doing a great job. And I just thank you for that. And I said the same thing to the people that we were interviewing, both for the deputy chief and the lieutenant role, to thank them for everything they were doing and really making the Walpole Police Department what it is today, which is an outstanding force and I think exemplars around community policing. So thanks, Chief, for everything you're doing.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, and I would echo what everyone has said thus far. I think that the Walpole Police Department and Chief are doing a great job at executing on this vision. And it reminded me a little bit when we were at the ceremony this evening with the officers receiving the Valor Awards for their service and for their actions under pressure, is that we can certainly always improve. And I know, Chief, that you and I have talked about it a lot recently. But in some of the literature that you provided to this board in support of the community policing initiative and some of the information that you said underpins that initiative, there is a lot in there about education. And I think that Jim O'Neill touched on a little bit just now, wherein we can always have additional training, we can always have more education. And I know that the officers and on up through lieutenants and deputy chief are very well educated individuals, and I think that we can continue that. And so the more training we can do, particularly when you look at the 21st Century Policing package that you sent from 2015 that was put out by the federal government, one of the keynote pieces of that in having accountability and having approachability of police officers is implicit bias. And implicit bias is really at the heart of the discussion that's going on at the national level and the local level right now surrounding our police department. And I think it's incumbent upon us to do everything we can, both as a community and as a department, to confront that and have some hard conversations with each other and with ourselves to ensure that that's not an issue. Because that's something that's insidious, and it's not something that we see, and it's not something that is easily discernible or identified. So we really need to be proactive, I believe, in rooting that out and having those talks and making sure that we're all educated and available for having those conversations. So, and I know that you are, at least you have been with me over the past couple of weeks, and I'm very appreciative of that. And I guess the last item I'd end on is that maybe it's time to have another citizen survey. It's been 5 years since the last one. Walpole has grown. A lot's happened in Walpole over the last 5 years. So something to consider there would be to have some formal outreach to the citizenry again to get their input on the police department.
Sure, thank you. I really appreciate all the comments. And I would obviously be remiss if we didn't recognize and talk about 21st century policing. And if you're not familiar with that, that started back in 2014-15 timeframe. President Obama created a task force to take a hard look at policing, an honest look at policing, and see what's going on. And they came up with very good recommendations, most of which the Walpole Police Department has adopted over the last 5 years. And Ben's exactly right. It's something where we can always get better, and policing changes all of the time. So we have to be ready to adapt to whatever's coming along. And whether or not, situations like what happened in Minneapolis and with George Floyd, which are obviously atrocious types of activity that's taken place, policing cannot ignore that. And it's something that we have to, together as a police community and communities itself, we have to be able to evaluate that and be better than that. And really, it's tough to watch, officers here who have been trained in 21st century policing, trained in implicit bias, trained in use of force. They have policies that all reflect these types of things. And it's tough to watch, some of these other cities across the country that are now just talking about doing implicit bias training, and now just talking about use of force and the chokeholds and all these other things that seem to be propping up. But the Walpole Police Department over the past 5 years, police legitimacy, procedural justice is been extremely important to us, and we know that that's the police acting in procedural just ways, fair and impartial policing. Allowing people to have a voice during encounters, having officers display dignity and respect for people, and kind of having that compassion when the person you're dealing with is experiencing probably the worst day of their life. You know, and having trustworthy motives and, you know, working and having that collective knowledge to try and avoid implicit bias. And it's even evident in our policies. It's evident in like our eyewitness policy, our eyewitness ID policy, for example. That's all designed a certain way from 21st century policing, which it's shocking to see that other departments across the country have not even considered that yet. So it's and it's certainly something that, you know, we need to continue to work on, and we will. I can guarantee you that. And as far as the survey, I think the command staffs discussed that after we talked about it, and that's definitely something that we want to do because, again, it's the Walpole community that's going to set our agenda. We should resubmit that and see if anything's changed and make any adjustments as necessary.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you again, Chief. I appreciate you providing all that information. I think this is a subject that we could honestly talk about for another 20 minutes if we had the time. And so I think it's important that as a town, as a board, as a department, that we continue this conversation over the next weeks and months, and as long as it takes, and that people should feel comfortable coming forward to have those discussions. So thank you again, Chief. Very appreciative.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So we'll move on here. It's 7:48 p.m. The next item on our agenda is the Norfolk County presentation with regards to the request of lease to purchase option. And we have upwards of 25 people on the Zoom right now. So, okay, I see Mr. Mullen and Mr. Mullen. Yeah, if you would like to.
If you don't mind if I jump in and give a quick introduction on this project before we get kicked off.
Oh, please. Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Jeff.
So the county is proposing a solar farm up at the site, actually two sites involved, one located off of Fisher Street and one located just off of North Street, just before the Westwood line, right before Bubbling Brook. And what they're required to do is come before the town and offer it as a lease to the town, to your board here. I believe Mike Mullen's on here, and Superintendent Tammy Quinn is going to kind of kick us off, give a quick introduction on the project. And then Andrew from Kearsarge, which is a solar company that's interested in developing this site, is going to talk about the project and walk us through a PowerPoint. And at the end of this, I need some directive from the select board as to, does the board want to pursue a lease with this property, which is our right to do so? If so, we must respond within 90 days. I believe our deadline is end of September to let the county know if we want to pursue a lease on this site, or if we're going to pass on it and go from there, and not pursue a lease on the site. So with that, Mike, I believe Tammy's on the line here. There's so many people, so.
Yeah, yes, she is. Thank you, Kim.
Hi, this is Tammy Quinn, Superintendent at Norfolk Aggie. I can't unlock my video. I think the host has to, but that's fine. Okay, just a minute. I'll do it now. There we go. Hi. The Aggie began an environmental science program 5 years ago, a little more than 5 years ago. The students were learning about the importance of solar power. And since sustainability is a large part of the curriculum, we wanted to provide a space for solar on our campus as a sign of our commitment to the environment. With the approval of our Board of Trustees, we approached the county with our proposal for solar power. Although we appreciate the cost savings of a solar project, our proposal was really student-centered. Our students know that using a source of renewable energy helps not only our individual school, but the neighborhood as well. Installing solar would enable our school to run on clean energy while at the same time combating greenhouse gas emissions and global warming. In addition, especially with an on-site solar installation, it would reduce dependence on outsourced fossil fuels and promote renewable energy use in the surrounding area. Another long-term benefit of going solar is the knowledge that students can gain from having this kind of innovation at their fingertips. Not only does a solar energy system encourage sustainable practices among the student body, but allows them to see the benefits on a daily basis. Solar has been integrated into our science and math curriculum as well as our environmental science program. Aggie students learn how to build and install solar panels and solar carts, and they visit middle schools to share their knowledge. Because of our commitment, Norfolk County Agricultural High School's Environmental Science Program has been recognized with the Secretary's Award for Excellence on their work on sustainability and earned many grants.
We lost you, Tammy.
Go ahead and try
Mike?
again. There we go.
Oh,
Got you now.
did you get to hear it?
Jim got you right. You stopped right after you heard him, so we were through to there.
You didn't hear any of it then?
No, we heard you up until I stopped you, so.
I didn't hear you stop me, Jim, so I don't know when that happened.
It was right when you were talking about the recognized with awards by the secretary.
Oh, perfect. Okay. We received the award on sustainability, and the school has received many grants because of this. And we really would like to see our campus mirror our commitment to solar energy. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Tammy. Jim, what was the next presentation that you have?
Andrew who's the representative from Kearsarge, which is this solar company that's looking to develop this site.
Okay, Andrew Bernstein is on. Are you out there, Andrew?
Yep.
No, I see Andrew's on here, but he's muted.
No,
oh, there we go.
Oh, sorry about that. I'm going to share my screen, Ben. We sent a quick overview presentation per the call that we had earlier with you and Jim. And with Mike, is there anything that you wanted to add first?
Yes, community, please. Like that.
No, if you want to start, Andrew, and then we can go from there. That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. So hopefully everyone can see my screen okay?
Yep, there it goes. Okay, so we've got your presentation, Andrew. Please go ahead.
Yep, so we're keeping this short because I know that we don't have a lot of time. So we're just going to give an overview. This is one of our projects. We try to also follow some of the words that Tammy was speaking about in terms of trying to use agricultural. We use sheep, which are sometimes more expensive than cutting the grass by hand, but it's a nice thing to do because we have facilities all over New England. So we're going to quickly review the project goals, timing, provide an update on North Street and Fisher Street, and gather further town feedback. Kearsarge, let me know, are things flashing on anyone's screen or is it okay?
We have you fine.
Okay, great. I'm getting the video effect, feel like it's a strobe light, but that's okay. Very quickly, Kearsarge started at the beginning of solar in 2010. I'm the founder. We're privately owned. We're one of the largest developers, owners, and operators. We don't develop projects and then sell them. We're the long-term owners. We're approaching about 150 megawatts, which is 400 million solar PV projects, and now some of them have batteries. Our largest footprint is in Massachusetts, but we're also in Rhode Island, and we're in New York, and starting in New Hampshire as well. Our focus has been on trying to create, I don't want to sound like a cliche, but a public-private partnership. So we've worked with, I think, north of 38 municipalities in the Commonwealth, school systems. Not only have we potentially put solar on roofs or on landfills or other sites, but we've also sold the net metered credits to different entities such as the Grafton Public Schools. We were the first solar developer to put solar on top of an active wellhead. So we really try to work in concert with communities and believe in what we're doing. We're about 15 people. The key to Kearsarge has always been that we're very flexible in approach and offering. We don't have any large outside investors. We're all the owners ourselves. So we're very flexible in what we're doing. We have a strong balance sheet, which has made us deliver projects on time and quality without some of the delays where we have to scramble. As people may know, a lot of the way these projects are put together is you sell the tax credits. So you have to have some good partners. So right now what we're talking about is 2 ground-mounted projects with storage at the Norfolk Agricultural School. So there's one that we're going to call the North Street Solar Array, and the other one is the Fisher Street Solar Array. After our call with Ben and Jim and the rest of the team, they asked us to see what we could do in terms of renderings, and what we've committed from day one is to make sure that we wouldn't create issues with site arrays and vision patterns, and try to do the best we can to site these away from any potential neighbors. And having done projects in, as I said, many states, we're well aware of some of these issues. So the North Street ground mount project will be approximately 5,000 AC. We've completed all the work with Eversource, and the Fisher Street ground mount project will be 1,000 megawatt or 1,000 AC kilowatts, or 1 megawatt. So as I said, Kearsarge will own and operate the facilities. All the arrays are landscaped and screened. We'll show you what that means, especially with the North Street. We're well aware of the sensitivity that's involved there. We've been working on these projects with the Ag School with assistance from the county for well over 3 years in terms of answering their RFI. So we're trying to integrate into the curriculum. We're trying to work together in terms of what we can do from the agricultural side, working with vegetation management. We will continue to own and operate the solar arrays. As probably many of you know now, these things are all fenced in. They're monitored 24/7. The site maintenance, we take a look at all vegetation management, monitoring the civil drainage systems and electrical inspections. We create decommissioning reserves to allow for the complete removal at the end of the useful life. And then we'll return the site to its pre-solar state, recycle the materials. The projects alone will generate taxes for Walpole. Our estimate, based on what we've done and what the costs are, there's the personal property taxes and the real property taxes, but the taxes over 20 years will be somewhere in the range of 1.5 to 1.8 million, and all of that is worked out, of course, with the assessor and as well as the Board of Selectmen in Walpole. There's an additional opportunity for these projects too, and not only with the tax revenue, but we can sell discounted energy to Walpole. A significant part of the discounted energy will be, as well as leases, will be sold, if you will, to the agricultural school. The county will pick up, but they don't have as much of a need, so it's a small portion for the county. And then we could provide excess electricity generated by the facility directly to Walpole. Jim has hooked us up with a consultant who you've worked with before. We realized that Walpole can only take a small portion of the credits, but we estimate that this could be an additional savings to Walpole of anywhere from 20 to 40,000, depending on a final analysis of existing bills, as we spoke to the Walpole consultant. We're trying to maintain the fiscal strength of the Norfolk Agricultural School, as well as really trying to add in a new curriculum level. So when we work with schools and other communities, we have a whole curriculum that will be integrated into the sciences and engineering side, getting the students involved from the beginning. And this has been something that's really critical. And we've already spoken to several different of the groups at ag school board meetings about some of their interests and tried to work with them from day one. And finally, for what it's worth, we realize that Walpole wants to continue to add to its existing net metering portfolio and its leadership in becoming one of the Commonwealth's leading clean energy towns. So if the objective of being 100% renewable energy by 2050, that's something we can work together with. The other thing that we can do, which is another major opportunity, these solar projects will be under the latest Commonwealth solar program called the SMART program, but there's ways to offer this as community solar as well, working in terms of with Walpole, and if there's an aggregated approach. It's just starting to evolve, but that's something we could also explore. So that's the high level. So this is the Fisher Street ground mount. The key of this is probably that we're going to be very far away from any neighbors. We went out, we put up basically stakes with the height of the solar array to see if they can be seen. They can't be seen. This is the existing vegetation. Certainly it could be a little bit thinner in the winter, but when you're 200 to 300 feet away from the nearest homes, which are up here, there should be no visibility of these projects, especially because these panels will face south or down. So you're not going to have any issues. So the existing vegetation, this is a small array. We'll access this from the existing fire trail. So this is a perfect array and perfect opportunity to put it in an area where we don't envision any issues with neighbors, and it will perfectly fit into the existing usages, what needs to be offsetting the energy load for the agricultural school. So the next slide is the North Street ground mount. We've spent a lot of time on this, trying to figure out how we do this, minimize any of the site views as you come down the road, as well as the neighbors. Excuse me. So I'm going to break this up into two parts, the north portion and the south portion. The north portion up here, and you probably have in your packet as well, there's a steep upslope. So there's very limited visibility from the road. We went out, we put balloons up here, we drove the road, we took numerous pictures. We're working on more extensive renderings as well. But we don't envision this is going to be an issue in terms of the sight line. It's 300 feet from the nearest homes. So I'll show you on the next page a couple pictures. But probably the greater concern will be, especially in the winter, will be cars driving from the north and up from the south. And the road and the property are at the same elevation. This is north right here going up. So what we're proposing is we will put in extensive screening along this where there already is existing trees right now. We'll be cutting down some of the trees that are there for the array, but most of the array from here down is on a steep downslope, so it's hidden from the road. So it's really this portion that we're most concerned about. And then as cars are driving up south, I mean, this is probably, this is 530 feet, so it's significant, but you can imagine that the angle from here is probably closer to 1,000 to 1,200 feet, depending where you are on the road. And it would really be from this portion that you could be seeing the corner of the arrays. So that's why we've designed it here. This is, if you will, without insulting the ag school, there's some ugly concrete blocks that have been sitting out there. Some of the old buildings, there's an old, I guess it was a prison building at one point, some other ones that will get cleaned up as well. But there's existing foliage right here, so we'd mirror that and put that in. So for all ostensible purposes, it's going to be very hard to see this. And our goal is to continue to preserve the bucolic pastures that you'll see from the road. So this is the current view right now. This is looking to the west and southwest. The natural topography screens the panels, so you won't be able to see anything. And then looking to the northwest, the vegetative screenings will be coming up from the south. And we put flags, and they're 250 feet from the fence, but our screening would be here. So you're not going to see, we use something probably like Arbor Vitae. We're very flexible, having done this in many different sites, and we'll come in with something that will look, you don't plant a 2-foot rhododendron and hope it grows. That's not the way we work. And so what we did here was we put flags, and you're still significantly far away from the road. So this view from here is one of my colleagues, Dan, has put together. This is the northwest view, and this is the west-southwest view coming down. And that we put the screening right along here. So we went and we placed flags all up and down this to try to better understand it. So that's the high level on North Street. And I'll open it up to questions. And I think, Mike, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add right now, but that's a quick presentation. I know we're on time.
Yeah, I think what we'd like to do now, Mike, unless, was there anything further that needed to be added from your end?
No, thank you, Chair. No, I think Dr. Quinn and Andrew, really, touched on what the project is, how hard we've been working on it, to really reflect the feedback we've been receiving from the town. And we're excited about the project. We're excited about working with the town to bring it to fruition. And as Andrew mentioned, we're happy to take any questions from members of the board.
Okay, that's great. Let's start with Andrew. Why don't you just keep your screen shared for a minute there, and we'll just go to each board member who's present, and for any further questions they have on this presentation or any of the information you provided. We will be taking a vote, not about the layout or the views or any of that. We'll describe that after we finish this portion of the meeting. But why don't we go ahead with the board members' questions about the presentation we just saw. Nancy, if you'd like to kick us off, please.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Am I unmuted? Okay. A few things. The timetable on this. So as far as voting, does it have to be voted tonight, or could it fit to our next meeting? Because my question or concern is that the public is getting to watch this, and yet they can't give us their comments, and that way they could send us their comments, and we would be able to look at them. And then the other question I have is the Aggie, how do they plan to put this into their curriculum? And are the Aggie buildings currently solar? What are they using for renewable energy now?
Okay, so the first part of that question I can answer, and we do have a couple of weeks before we have to answer on the lease portion. But as I'll describe, before we consider whether or not to vote on that, that's unrelated to the layout and public hearing and whatnot. It's not an approval of the project. It doesn't have to do with the building or the construction. It's solely with this lease portion. So that's that part. Now, if Mike or Tammy, you could answer Nancy's questions as it regards to school.
I can answer them. So as far as solar on campus right now, we do not have it. We do build some roof and then put solar panels to show installation. We do have small solar arrays that are portable that kids charge their cell phones with and things like that. But as far as renewable energy for the campus, we have no solar right now. We do have a wind power, a turbine that the students built one summer, and it's just to show a different source of renewable energy, but that's all we really have right now. And how is it going to be used? It's a huge piece of the environmental science program.
So
what we've done,
in your deadline too, you asked about what do we have for as far as a time period. I just pulled up my notes. We need to Mass General Law, Chapter 34, Section 14, requires the county to inform the town of its intent to lease the property at least 90 days prior to contracting for the lease. So basically, our 90 days is up on September 25th, 2020. So we do have some time to discuss this. Obviously, I believe the first year of the lease is for both parcels is roughly close to about $200,000 or so dollars. So we would need to, if we wanted to pursue this, figure out how to come up with that money and everything. But we do have time.
So, I mean, my concern is that as far as the presentation goes, the public hasn't gotten to see this until we've gotten to see this. And for them to give us their comments, to keep it, as open as a meeting as we can on Zoom, to allow people to watch this. Maybe we could also put it on the website so they could view it again. And then they could send their comments into us and we could see, just to be transparent as we can in the pandemic and allow for public participation.
Yeah, to be as clear and transparent as we can, people shouldn't be sending any comments into us, Nancy. This isn't town land, it's the county's land, it's the county's project. And what we would be discussing and voting on tonight is solely, as Jim alluded to, whether or not we're going to take on this lease to the tune of a couple $100,000 a year. It has nothing to do with the building of the project, it has nothing to do with the solar arrays or anything we've seen. And so I would just reiterate again, if people have comment on this, one of the reasons that we had the presentation to be shown tonight was so that people could see it in a public setting. And I know that Kearsarge and the county had talked about having other public hearings in which people could either come and sit and listen to this and ask questions, or possibly through a Zoom. Again, it wouldn't be facilitated by the town, it wouldn't be facilitated by this board. So I just reiterate again that if people have questions, comments, they should begin sending them into the county at this point.
Oh, okay, so I'm sorry. So you're just going with the fact that the vote that we're doing is going back to the county, not for us to purchase.
It'll be on the lease, yeah. Whether or not the town is going to exercise this option that is given to us under state law to... So
that's what I meant. I just meant for them to give us their comment on that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. Very good. All right, Mark.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. As Ben just mentioned, the decision for the select board is whether we will lease the land from the county or pass on that opportunity, which is available to us because of state law. I thought the presentation that you did was good. I think that the most amount of outreach you can do for the neighbors all the way up and down North Street would be great. I had 2 reach out to me today trying to get a handle on what's going on. I think that you've shown some sensitivity toward the issues the neighbors will have and driving on the scenic North Road. So I think anything you can do along those lines to reach out to people, invite them in or invite them onto Zoom to learn more about your project is great. But as I reminded the 2 people who called today, the only thing we as select board get to vote on is whether we want to lease the land from the county or not, which is a pretty simple decision from my perspective. We don't really have a vote, as Ben was also talking about, on the project, what it looks like, how it's put together. But I appreciate you giving us a view of that, because I know a bunch of people are going to watch tonight to get a preview, and I'm sure they'll have some questions, and we can encourage them to reach out directly.
Yeah, I mean, anything that we're going to do, Mark, if I could quickly respond, is we'd like to do it in concert. So we'd like to listen and hear comments. That's the way we work. It's just the line. And we can be flexible right now at this stage, especially in terms of screening and things we can do. So we can potentially make some improvements. As we said, the middle of that is not the prettiest site right now. And we preserve some of the other things that are going on. So we're open to get comments. And Jim had asked us if we at some point we could have some sort of public neighborhood Zoom meeting, is fine by us.
Andrew, I think you're going in the right direction. I think that's what the neighbors would like, is to get a little more vision on the project and to make suggestions. Too many times projects get pushed through and they don't feel like they've been listened to. And it sounds like you're willing to listen, which is a really good thing.
Yeah, I mean, I can only speak for Kearsarge, but we've been told, not been told, but in concert with Tammy and Mike, the rest of the team, that working in tangent with the neighbors is absolutely critical. And we would do it anyhow, but I think it's also originating with the county and the ag school.
Great, thanks.
Thank you, Mark. Jim O'Neill?
Yeah, hi. Thanks for being here tonight and starting the discussion and bringing us through this. Have we done any kind of a cost-benefit analysis? And I guess, Jim, maybe this question is to you. Have we done any kind of a cost-benefit analysis that says, if we lease the land, this is what it's going to cost us over some period of time. If we don't lease the land, this is what the benefit to the town is going to be. And how do those two compare? Because, we're being asked to make a decision here that it's a hard one, because I think we all agree that finding alternative sources of energy is a good idea. But we also have some just beautiful land up in that part of the town. And I think it's important that we understand what the potential trade-offs are in terms of, what it's going to look like and what are the benefits to Walpole as we make this decision. So I'd really like, number one, to hear, have we thought about it from a cost-benefit point of view, or should we? And I'd like to, I've got some other questions as well, but let's just start there. So, and how can we get our arms around that prior to deciding what we're going to do?
So Ben, do you mind if I answer that one? Okay.
No, please, go ahead, Jim.
So from my perspective, yeah, a rough cost-benefit analysis is done, not digging down into the details, but when this project was proposed some time ago, I think it was maybe 2 years ago, we looked into it. I said, what do you think it would take in as far as tax or payment in lieu of taxes, or as far as revenue? And I think at the time it was roughly $100,000, give or take a little bit. I think Kearsarge thinks it's a little bit less than that. That's to be determined, but let's call it $100,000 in revenue the town would take in one way or another in taxes on the equipment on the site, and versus the $200,000 per year that we'd have to pay out with I think it's a 2.5% escalator in the contract.
Yeah.
Mike. So
1.5.
1.5. So we'd need to come up with that money each and every year, and we don't have the green communities funds to dip into, so we really have to dip into the revenue each year, whether it be local receipts or state aid or whatever else. So just from my perspective, that's like a $300,000 swing one way or another, depending on how you look at it. But I haven't dug down deep into what we would actually take in as far as revenue, because quite honestly, I agree with you, Jim, that land is both of those sites, not just the one on located across from
That's right.
1350 North, but the other one off of Fisher, which is, my kids go on the haunted hay rides there up and back. I've been up there a few times with the kids, and that's another pristine site that, I know some of the neighbors are already expressed concern to me about. It's in my backyard, and I go out in the morning and I'm able to look over this nice field, especially during COVID, and we saw people walking out there. What's the trade-off? And, it's just a matter of, at this point, really coming up with that 200 or so thousand for the next 20 years, which is a lot to come up with. And again, it's up to you, the select board, to say, we want to pursue this. Let's get this in place and let's set up a town meeting, because by September 25th, because we have to have all the funding in place and notify them by then.
Yeah, so we can go ahead and clarify that now, Jim, and you added a new wrinkle into it here, which is that it must be approved by a town meeting. So we would need to convene, I'm not sure what the proper terminology is, Jim, that's convene an emergency town meeting, I believe, by that date, in order to...
Special town meeting.
special town meeting. We have to convene a special town meeting by that date in order to consider this. Is an added wrinkle. So, Jim O'Neill, what was the second part of your question?
So I guess the next question that I have is around what level of guarantee we could get that these arrays are not going to be visible to the residents or anybody driving up and down North Street. And, you know, one of the challenges is you've got up in that part of town is actually everywhere in town, there's a lot of deer. You mentioned arborvitae. Arborvitae is, you know, something deer like to eat. So what we need to do is, if you're thinking about a screen, we need to know that the screen is going to be able to stand up to, you know, whatever is going to attack it out there, so that we don't end up with, you know, the bottoms all chewed off the arborvitaes where you can see through them and see the arrays. And so I'd really want to hear what kind of guarantees we can get that this is literally going to be invisible to the people who live in the areas that we're talking about.
So I can answer that. I mean, we have these issues come up on every project. I can never say that it's going to be entirely 100% invisible, because there's always going to be some things that are going to die out. But one of the things that we are happy to commit to is the decommissioning fund that we're putting up. We could say those funds can be drawn upon any time if we're not maintaining the tree, so that we'll continue to maintain the trees. Deer certainly like arborvitae, there's no doubt about it, but we've done it from Great Barrington to Duxbury to down to the Cape, and eastern cedars are another one. So we work with landscapers to try to come up with a plan, landscape designers to come up with a plan to answer some of those concerns. So I guess the guarantee is that we're going to try to work with the neighbors from the start, but we're going to try to put up, and we will do renderings to demonstrate what it will look like. I think the Fisher Street, which is really buried, that's mostly trees. There's no open fields that we're going to be destroying so you'll be able to walk around, but it's mostly a treed area there, and it's got wetlands around it on the south side as well. So we're not as concerned about the Fisher, especially because we're so far away from the nearest neighbors. We did that on purpose. And we can work to try to minimize that as well. We have some flexibility with layout and some of the good concerns, such as if we can get a higher wattage panel, you can use less panel, smaller footprint. But I think that as designed, we working with the ag school in the county, we've minimized the size of the North Street array quite significantly because of some of the concerns, and we've heard the information from some of the meetings in the past where neighbors have come up, and all the concerns you're raising, Jim, are certainly front and center. So I think putting the screening there, I mean, there's some other options, but we don't think that would be as appealing. You can put screening along the fence, closer to the fence, and that would minimize it probably even greater, but I think that would be detrimental to the bucolic of the land there, and you want to continue to have that rolling pasture. So it's going to be, the pasture for the most part is still going to be there on sides.
Yeah, and it's that rolling pasture that I'm most concerned about, although I'd be interested to hear from the residents on the Fisher Street site as well. The picture you showed us certainly makes it look like it's far away from any residents, but I'd love to hear some input from that group. And I guess the final question that I've got goes to the question of minimizing the footprint. And if I think about, you know, particularly that part that requires the screen itself, we're making the bet that the screen is actually going to work. Is there any way to minimize that footprint such that even if the screen doesn't work, that we would not see it? Or does that make the project untenable?
Well, the numbers that we presented and had the appraisal based on a certain size project. So I think we were using 420 watt panels. So we tie the lease, and the energy savings, of course, are tied to the size of the project. So there can be some work on North Street. You can move panels around and do some of it. I don't know if it'll significantly make the footprint smaller, but it will in areas. You could probably move 5% around. I mean, we've done this in the past. You go from a panel size of 420 as the industry changed, with the largest panels we can really get right now up to 440. You're getting basically 5% right there. So our goal is to try to do it that way. So I guess the answer, Jim, is that we're trying to be as flexible as possible. This is not something we want to shove it in and do something, because our reputation stands behind it as well. And it is quite important to us, because on every project we've done it in concert with towns, neighbors. We did a 5,000 kilowatt project in West Concord, in a really bucolic area. We had neighbors on the other side of the Assabet River. We went through the same process. There's always going to be someone that's not going to be pleased. We can't please everyone, but we work with the majority to try to make sure this project would not be able to be seen. We put up flags, we took pictures, and we were able to do a pretty good job. There's other things you can also do, looking at the fencing that you're going to put up there. There are ways to put up a black fence or things like that. There's different feelings about that.
Okay, thank you. So Ben, I would really like to get some public input here, and I totally get your point that this is not to us about the size of the project. It's all about whether we decide to lease the fields to prevent the project from going forward, or whether we decide to let the project go forward and then hope to partner as best as we can to make sure that we reduce any of the downside to the neighbors. But I'd love to hear some input from the public on this, and if we could wait till the next meeting, and I don't know if time-wise that we have the time to do that, but if we could, I really think that would be the best thing to do. And then try to figure out how do we quickly get some input from the neighbors, which I suspect we can get pretty quickly. The other advantage is I'd really like to have a full board together for this when we take that vote. And we're down today. We only have 4 members here today, so I'd really prefer to have a full board here when we take that vote.
Okay. All right, Nancy, you had raised your hand. Do you have something that you wanted to add there?
Yeah, I did. That I like that question about the cost analysis. I think that is important. I think it really stinks that they came 2 years ago and we pretty much let them know then, and the neighbors let them know then, that they weren't interested. And, now towns and communities, our municipalities, we're all strapped for cash with everything that's going on with this pandemic. So the fact that it would be so expensive for us to do it really stinks, because it's almost like they came back when they knew, I'm feeling this way, when they knew that it would be even less of an option for us to financially be able to try to swing this when we're, trying to keep our other, base level services going. But with that being said, I've also a full board is important for us to have. But I just think that, maybe there are some options out there. Maybe the public has something that they could give us as far as what they would think, or if there was another plan, or it's just something we haven't thought of yet. And then as far as its permitting process, if it does go through, does it go before the planning board? Does it qualify to go before the planning board because of it being coming through the county? Would they still go through that process, or is it just the reassurances that they're giving us that they'll work with the neighbors? And would there be, and if not, is there an agreement, especially mentioning that about the screening? What kind of agreements do they have with those other towns to make sure that that's going to happen?
Yeah, I think Jim Johnson, if you'd like to talk on that, you can, but there is no agreement with the town. I would just reiterate again that their agreement is with the county, that we actually don't have any agreement whatsoever with the solar operator or builder or contractor to any extent. So, Jim, do you want to talk to the planning board portion of it?
Sure. And Mike, Mike Mullen, I'd like you to jump in at the end to kind of, or maybe your counsel to voice where you people are coming from. I have asked the question, you know, Walpole has a zoning overlay district that requires any solar farm to go forward with, to basically outline that specific parcel. We've done it with the bird machine site, with the bird the landfill site off of West Street, and the property at the end of Industrial Road. Each one of those three sites have come forward and done a zone overlay district, had to be voted on by town meeting with a 2/3 vote. And town meeting also authorized the town to enter into a pilot agreement. It's the county's position, from what I understand, that they are not required to go before town meeting because they are exempt as a governmental body. I believe specifically as an educational use, ancillary to the county, the Aggie school, sorry. So I believe they're exempt on that perspective. So Mike, did I miss anything as far as what the county's position is on this one?
No, Jim. And if I could, we also have our counsel on the call as well. And he can explain more of that in terms of the rationale.
Hello, everyone. I'm Scott Lopez. I'm the attorney for the county. About 2 years ago, I sent a letter to your council with the opinion that the county is exempt from zoning pursuant to the essential governmental function doctrine, and as well as the Dover Amendment. And so we want to work with the town, and we want to meet whatever requirements the town reasonably requests. At the end of the day, we can move forward with this project, even though the area in question is not zoned for solar.
So basically, and I just want to also follow up or reiterate, the town is not proposing this. I mean, at the end of this, I'd like to read a couple of, we've got outreach from about 6 residents. I'd like to be able to read some of their comments into it, but a lot of people are on the understanding that the town, select board, this office is pushing for this. We are not pushing for this. It is the county who is pushing for this. They have identified another source of revenue, and they want to pursue this further and use it as an educational use for the school. So I just want to be clear, the select board has an option here, whether or not to lease the property, because as per state law, they're required to do it. So just I want to reiterate that. Thanks, man.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Okay. Thank you, Jim Johnson, for that as well. And yeah, I think at the end of this, it would be a good idea to read those emails that we sent. I saw them as well, so that we can have that in the public session here. And I would just reiterate, this discussion here has been really wide-ranging, and has touched on a number of issues that are related to this solar project. First and foremost being, and something that we've heard from all of the board members here tonight, is the need for a public hearing, and sooner rather than later, that the county could hold, so that the public can come, they can see this presentation again if they haven't seen it, or if they're not able to watch it on the reruns, so that they can be heard specifically in their questions about the project itself, whether it's the exact locations, if it's in the hayfield where the hay rides are taken, where exactly it is on the North Street parcel, so that they can look at the pictures, see the flags that were planted, and the pictures that were taken by Kearsarge. That would be immensely helpful to the public, and they've certainly made themselves heard in that regard. Second is to Nancy's question and point about the planning board and the zoning overlay. I think that that's something, through conversations with Jim Johnson and town council that would probably be proper to bring up again in another one of our meetings so that the board can discuss it. Certainly, as Jim O'Neill brought up, that we have a full board to discuss that. And then lastly is the issue which is actually on the agenda for tonight, which is the consideration of this lease. And I hear from the board members who are present a preference for putting this off until possibly our next meeting to vote on. And if that's the board's pleasure, then that's fine. I would point out that if, in fact, the board members are serious about trying to execute this lease, that we would then be out of time, or we would have extremely limited time to have a special town meeting with which to actually take part in it. So it really is, from a time perspective, necessary that we have that tonight. So if everyone can think about that before we finish with this conversation tonight. So to wrap it up here, Jim Johnson, did you get in all the information that you wanted to say? We can read the emails and the public input after. But is there anything else that you wanted to add to the discussion?
No, I was just actually pulling up the general code requirement as to what is required for a special town meeting. So I'll get that before the end of this call. I think it's a 14 or 7 day notice, but give me a minute or two and I'll find it. So.
Yeah. Oh. Okay. So given that, if the board members' pleasure would be to make a motion, they could make one now. Being that there is no motion, I think that we should take this portion of the meeting, put it on our next agenda. We can continue the discussion. And before we wrap this up, we'll go to Jim Johnson so that he can read the emails that we've received. I would just once again reiterate that if there are folks in Walpole, residents, abutters who feel strongly about this project, that you spread the word about this presentation so that people can see the information that has been presented, that you keep tabs on the public hearing that will be forthcoming from the county, and that you reach out to the county with your thoughts, with your feelings, with your comments, and your questions so that they can be answered in the timely manner. Jim Johnson, why don't you go ahead with
just
what
to
you
clarify the town meeting question, Ben. I found it.
Oh, yeah.
Special town meeting requires 7 days advance notice of the meeting.
7?
Regular is, that's the date, so.
Very good. Looking that up, Jim.
Okay. So a couple of comments that I've gotten in. I have about 6 people who've reached out, not just this evening, over the last couple of days. So Rudy Borjas, he lives up on that section of town. He's questioning prior notification of butters. Does that need to be given? He thinks there should be a public hearing on the matter regarding solar developments. He thinks the property is irreplaceable in the value and it's historic and scenic gateway to our community. He's asking that we give the residents a voice in the matter. Then Tracy Firth, who lives up in that section, the person would like to voice concerns that Rudy stated, and he's in 100% agreement with the comments there. Susan Shockett is not pleased at all with the meeting this evening. She informed me that Tammy Quinn reached out to her and said that she wasn't sure whether there was an educational value for this property there. She's not pleased with the process and doesn't agree that it should fall under the Dover Amendment. Brian Murphy agreed with what Sue Shockett said and thinks it should be stopped and legal process should be started. Again, I'm reading these kind of from the cuff, so I'm kind of summarizing them as I go. Anthony and Deanna Frucci reached out a couple of weeks ago. They're writing to express their concerns over the project. They're deeply concerned with the impact the project will have on the surrounding property values, views of the open space and the area wildlife. They've enjoyed the wildlife area in the open field behind them. I believe they live off of Fisher Street. And it's been really a wild kingdom there. Deer, turkey, rabbits, hawks, and an occasional coyote, official cat, and what happens to the wildlife if this project's approved. And then Vic Senna expressed his concern over locating it in this pristine location, which is a gateway to Walpole, thinks the project should be sited elsewhere. So those are the 6 people that reached out to me recently just to voice concerns.
Okay, thank you, Jim. I appreciate you reading those into the record here for the public. Yes, Nancy, something else on this?
Yes, I just wanted to be clear. What I am looking for from people is suggestions on how we would pay for this. A private idea, some sort of partnership. You know, that's what I'm looking for. A reason for comments as to why we could pay this. You know, how would we do that, as opposed to, you know, the answer for us isn't whether we're talking about how much we love and would like to keep the land there. We agree with that. We would love to keep the open field and as much open space. And, you know, Walpole has voted historically to save open space. You know, we purchased Adams Farm for that reason. But the question and the help that we need from residents is, how could you make it possible for the town of Walpole to lease this land? So that would be the information that we would really need as a board, and the suggestions to be able to not do this. So that's what I think that we need to get from the public. That's it.
Great. Thank you, Nancy. Yeah, why don't we just go right through again, since Nancy had another comment. Mark, do you have anything to add after this discussion?
No additional comments.
Okay. Jim O'Neill?
Just a question. If we were to lease the field, what could we do with it? Now, recognizing that the whole point of this is that we want to preserve the bucolic nature of the space, but is there something we could do with it that would actually offset at least some of the cost of leasing? And I'm not sure what that might be, but to Nancy's point, there's a lot of creative people out there. You know, maybe that's something that people could bring forth, some ideas on what we might be able to use the field for, so that leasing it at $200,000 a year and up might have some offset to it.
Great. Thank you, Jim.
Thanks.
Okay. All right. That wraps up the discussion on the Norfolk County presentation item. Mr. Mullen and everybody with the county, thank you very much for coming on tonight. Andrew Bernstein, thank you very much for your presentation as well, answering the questions for tonight.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Have a good evening. All right. Next item on our agenda is the Historic Commission interviews and vote for appointment. There is one full vote seat available. We have 4 individuals who I see with us tonight: Mr. Emerald, Mr. Doan, Mr. Bringhurst, and Mr. Graham. So here's how we're going to go forward with this one. For the 4 of you as well, thank you for being with us tonight. And then for the board members, Edification as well. We'll go through, we'll have each of these gentlemen say their piece on why they believe they want to be a part of the Historic Commission as a full voting member. And if there's any board member who has a question or a comment immediately following that, please raise your hand. If not, then we'll move to the next individual. At the completion of all 4 of these individuals having an opportunity to discuss and receive questions from the board, I would then welcome a motion from one of the board members. So that's the administrative aspect for tonight. And then before we get started here, I would just add one more thing, and that is that I know that 2 of you are currently associate members of the Historic Commission, and 2 of you are not currently involved with the Historic Commission. Whatever way it goes tonight, I would very much encourage individuals to, if not appointed tonight, to reapply for one of the associate member positions. You don't have to come back in. You don't have to do another interview, but just to get involved to some extent with the Historic Commission would be fantastic. So we'll go, let's just go in alphabetical order by last name. So we'll start with Mr. Amaral.
Can you hear me, Ben?
How are you?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you fine. Why don't you go ahead?
Okay, I'll make it quick. I've got a little written statement here, and then I'm going to just blast through it. So I was, as you said, I am an associate member, although I haven't been re-sworn in yet because of the closure of the town hall. But thank you to the board, all the members of the board who reappointed me. I'm asking for the select board's consideration to appoint me as a voting member of the Historical Commission. I originally served on the Historical Commission from 2007 to 2015. I was asked at that time to apply to the commission by Ms. Betty Cottrell, Walpole's de facto official historian at the time. I later became chairman in 2011, served as chair from 2011 to early 2015. This coincided with the sesquicentennial of the War of the Rebellion. The Historical Commission sponsored several events around that anniversary under my leadership. I also was instrumental in working out the application and nomination of Union Station to the National Register of Historic Places. That involved dealing with the local bank to pay for a researcher and interfacing with the MBTA officials that were managers of the station. It all worked out very well. I became re-involved as an associate member at the request of a former town official and several members of the Walpole Historical Society, which I'm a member of. So more recently, as a member of the commission, as an associate member, I came up with two initiatives. One was to address the vandalism of the Endine Estate site, the former home of noted abolitionist, industrialist, and state senator Francis Byrd. I've begun a dialogue with Ms. Vidya Tiku, a director of the Trustees of Reservations, who made a personal visit to the site, which I thought was incredible. I have also made positive contact with members of the Homeowners Association of the Endine Estates. The idea I have proposed is to move the interpretive display and granite roller at that site to Byrd Park. This project has been dormant, unfortunately, because of the pandemic. I haven't been able to push things and communicate with people, but I think it could ramp up. I've also proposed that the rail tunnel going under Route 1A between Union Station and Route 1A, I think you know what I'm talking about there, be considered for National Register of Historic Places nomination. The tunnel is made from local Walpole shale, is one of the oldest and continuously in use rail tunnels in the USA. Positive contact has been made with the MBTA principals about this. Again, the project is dormant because of the pandemic. And lastly, or thirdly, I have been included as a member of the Historical Commission that will be involved with determining the usage of the old town hall. As most of you know, I've been an advocate of promoting our Civil War history, and it was the generation that fought and won the War of the Rebellion that funded the construction of that dear landmark. So in closing, I'd just like to say, as a person that was raised in Walpole, has many family members located here, I provide a local viewpoint on the Historical Commission. I consider everything I do about the history of the town of Walpole to be about my own hometown. So with that, I also will say that Rob Doan, who's also applying for this position, I have a lot of respect for Rob, and I really was impressed with his background with the, I think it's the Naval War College down there in Newport. So it's really great to have other people get involved. If I'm not selected, I'm still going to be an associate member. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Emerald. Anybody have any question or comment or discussion from Mr. Emerald? Let's go with hands. Being that there is none, thank you, Mr. Emerald. I appreciate it. We'll move next on the list to Mr. Bringhurst. Brian, if you could, oh, there you are.
All right.
How are you doing tonight?
I'm all right.
Good. Thanks for coming on and hanging in there. I know it's been a lengthy session here. So if you could go ahead and just update us on, where you're at with the Historic Commission, why you're interested, who you are, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, sure. My name's Ryan Bringhurst. I grew up in Walpole. I cannot boast any past experience on the historical commission, like Mr. Amaral, who I think has done a great job, and I'm very I respect everything that he has done that he just mentioned. But yes, I did. I grew up in Walpole with a love of history. I then went to Emmanuel College and got a bachelor's degree in history. I now work as a research grants administrator at Tufts University in Boston. And I feel that the historical buildings and sites in our town, and really anywhere, are a unique and really powerful way for people to connect with their ancestors and people from the past. There's nothing quite like standing in a building and, knowing that this is exactly what it was like, for, exactly the building that it was in the past for people, or this is exactly what it looked like. And my concern is that, once we lose them, they're gone forever. And that connection is gone forever. Therefore, I have a big passion for doing whatever I can to help preserve history and specifically historical buildings and sites in our town, so that they can be shared with future generations in new and exciting ways. I also feel that with our town seemingly on the cusp of significant change and growth, I think it's more urgent than ever to preserve, protect, and enhance the public visibility of our historical buildings and sites, so that we can move forward into the future of Walpole without losing our links to Walpole's past. So yeah, that's great. I don't have as many credentials as some of the more experienced members. And like Mike, I will, if I'm not selected for this position, I will try to get involved as much as I can.
Yeah, thank you. Really appreciate you coming out tonight and putting your hat in the ring for this. It's really important people get involved, so thank you. All right, moving on to the next. Mr. Dome. I see. Oh, there we are.
Can you see me?
Hi, how are you?
I have no power here, so I know it's a little dark, so I apologize, but hopefully this works.
Okay, go right ahead.
Great, okay. Well, first, so my name is Rob Doan, and I do want to thank Mike real quickly for his comments. I have nothing but respect for him as well, and he's been a hard advocate for pushing very hard for historic preservation in Walpole, so I definitely appreciate everything he's done, and thank him for that as well. So for me, my professional background has been in the historic field for about 15 years now. Have a bachelor's in history from the University of Michigan and a master's in public history from Loyola University in Chicago, and have had training in historic preservation. Have been able to submit nominations for 2 properties to the National Register. One of them was a meeting hall in Chicago, and another one is Norman Rockwell's studio out in Stockbridge. So nothing in this area, but have some experience knowing how it works and helping people to navigate the process. So yeah, I've been active with the commission for about a year now as an associate member, and have just tried to contribute as much as I can, bringing some of my own background and knowledge to the process. We've had a number of site visits, a number of considerations that have come before the commission. I know everybody on the commission, every time we get a inquiry about a permit to demolish a building, I know all of our hearts sink a little bit. But there are cases where there's really no other option, and that's really the heart of the commission's work, I think, is trying to figure out when we can work with the property owner to help save a building. And, if there are no other options, at least get the best possible outcome, take photographs or save furnishings from the inside, whatever the case may be. But that's a tough call. And I think one of the best things we can do is just help property owners understand the process, because there can be a lot of misunderstanding and sometimes suspicion of the process of historic preservation, and sometimes they think we're trying to stop them from doing what they want with their properties. So it's important to have the knowledge and the skills to be able to reach out to them, I think, and explain how we can help, and that we don't have to be adversarial about it. We can help them hopefully find a solution that works for everybody, or at least works as best as it possibly can. So with that, yeah, I've been been able to contribute, I think, in as many ways as I can with being at the meetings, adding to the conversation. I've started a Facebook page for the commission to advertise a little bit more of what we do. We've had a work day where we organize the files and some of our old meeting notes in Lewis House, which I helped out with. So little ways like that I've been able to help out and really have appreciated and enjoyed learning kind of what the local issues are here. So when my wife and I moved here about 5 years ago, definitely the historic landscape was part of the appeal for being here. So I just want to help, preserve that for future generations and make sure that downtown Walpole doesn't start looking like a section of Route 1. So, as much as we can, at least. So with that, I'd thank you for your time.
Thank you, and thank you again for volunteering. And we will move on then to the last individual, Mr. Graham. So.
Hi, I hope you can see and hear me okay. I also don't have any power.
Go right ahead. Yeah, we can see you and hear you fine, so go right ahead.
Okay, thanks. So I was actually born and raised in Norwood, and I only moved back to Walpole a couple of years ago. I have a doctorate in anthropological archaeology from the University of Connecticut and have been really privileged to work in different sites all over the world doing archaeology. And so when I came back to the town, and like some of the other candidates talked about, the growth, some would say even explosive growth that's happening around, I really wanted to get involved with the town any way that I can. I've been past president of the Massachusetts Archaeological Society and have served as a trustee on that board for a number of years also. And for me, my passion is really preservation. I don't approach it. A lot of the candidates have more experience than I do with historical archaeology, with historic structures. I obviously come at it from more of a pre-contact. That's where more of my experience is, excavating Native American sites and things like that, dealing with historic landscapes. So I thought that those skills might be complementary to some of the skills that are already present on the commission board. And my passion is really driven by, when I first started going to excavations and working, you get that sort of electric feeling when you find something in the ground that, no one's touched for the past 5,000 or 6,000 years. And I think you can get that same thing from going into these historic structures and experiencing, getting that connection with the past. And I think that that's really important for people, especially with, younger people and technology, but just kind of stopping and stepping back and reconnecting with what has come before, both historic and pre-contact. So that's really why I was interested in this role. I thought that my skills would sort of be complementary to some of the existing skill sets on the commission.
Yeah, no, that's great. And thank you so much again for throwing your hat in the ring. We can use obviously the volunteers and experts, as it were, in these various fields we can. So thank you so much.
Thanks.
So if there's no further discussion from the board, I entertain a motion from one of the members.
Sorry. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Okay. All right. I think everyone has contributed so much and has such an incredible history, and brings so much to the table. With all of the new things initiatives over this one last year that Rob Doan had taken, I would like to make the motion that would move him to a regular member, if everyone is okay with that. So I'd like to make a motion to appoint Rob Doan to the Historical Commission for 3 years. I did also want to mention his screensaver is the same picture that I have on the wall behind me. Anyway.
I'll second that.
Very good. We have a motion and a second. We'll vote via roll call, starting with Nancy.
Yes.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
And Ben, aye, 400. thank you very much, everybody, for coming out tonight. I definitely encourage folks to stay involved in these various commissions. And Mr. Doan, Aoife Kelly will reach out to you, and we can get you set up correctly there. So thank you again, everyone.
And Ben?
Yeah.
So one last thing, so that will open another associate position?
Yeah.
Because he's an associate, so we do have the two. And what would be the process to add another associate? I mean, because Ryan, with his grant writing ability, I'm would be an incredible asset. And then Philip too, I mean, just his historical and archaeological past. I mean, I don't want to let them go.
No, absolutely not. Anybody who's interested, we should be able to involve them. So if it ended up that we had more than one application for a given position, then we can broach that subject when we come to it. And then I imagine this board would need to add a position, which we can do.
Sounds good.
Great. All right. Moving on to the next agenda item is Norfolk County Advisory Board appointment. We received one application of interest for this, which was Mr. Robert Damish, and I believe we have Mr. Damish here. Oh, there we are. All right. How are you this evening?
Oh, no, I don't. Sorry.
Yeah. So thanks for joining us, hanging in there on this meeting. The Norfolk County Advisory Board, is a very important position here in town. For those that don't know, there's one person from each town within Norfolk County that sits on it, and they meet, I believe it's every other month throughout the year to give important input on behalf of Walpole to the county on their initiatives and spending and projects and everything at the county level. So it really is a critical position. So please, Mr. Damish, if you could go ahead, introduce yourself again and maybe expand upon the application that you had given us.
Sure. Robert, Precinct 7, longtime resident of Walpole. Thank you, Select Board, Mr. Johnson, anyone else who's listening for this opportunity to talk at this time. Yeah, it's an incredible position. I agree with you, Ben. One of 28 people, right? One per town gets to represent on this advisory board. Why it appeals to me, it's a great opportunity to represent the town I love and play a role in some key decisions that benefit the town in Norfolk County at the same time. I mean, I was enthralled by the discussion we just had, which had to do with the fields, the solar panels on the fields. And already my mind was turning about Norfolk County and Walpole, and you, Mr. O'Neill, brought up some great points about, how do we make this work, and so the town gets what they get, and Norfolk County gets what they get, et cetera. So I really got a feel already as to what this would involve. Another reason I feel that this position appeals to me is gives me an opportunity to engage and work with representatives from other towns, hear what's going on with them. A great chance to collaborate. I could bring some ideas back to the town. Thirdly, and this is probably the most important one to me, is it has to do with the agricultural school. I realize that the agricultural school falls within the budget and the oversight of the Norfolk County. I would play a role on the advisory board on that budget every year, making sure that the school got everything they needed, what they need financially, or working with Tammy Quinn as to what she's looking for future needs. One thing I hear from a lot of people when I talk to people from out of town, but in this area, they always say, what you have? You've got a great agricultural school. So I wish Tammy was here to hear that. It's very strong feedback. She must be very proud of her school. But why do I qualify for this position? I've been at RTM for 11 years. I've been a library trustee for 7 years that just ended. And I feel through the years I've got a very good experience with budgeting and the town meeting experience. The meeting preparation, meeting protocols, how to collaborate with others. The vote may not always go my way, but I always feel it's been a fair discussion at town meeting. Working with library trustees, I've been involved in a number of projects. The 5-year anniversary project comes back to me. We're very proud of the library. We had a great turnout for that special Saturday in March a few years ago. Also, even just working with the other library trustees, on the director's annual review, getting together and overseeing that and making sure everybody plays a role in it. So I tend to take a collaborative approach and engage with others. I also feel I have some good relationships with a lot of people in this town. I feel like I could talk to any people I'm looking at right here, as well as the chief, as well as Jim Johnson, obviously. We may not always think in both the same way, but I've always respected everyone. I feel I get the respect in return. And I know Bill Buckley's on this call. I see his name there, and he plays a key role with the Norfolk County Commission. So I feel that's already a great connection that we have someone from Walpole in that role, and I would definitely look to Bill for some guidance as well and direction. Great. So. In short, I just want to say I feel like I could utilize all the skills I've learned through the years as an RTM. From what I've seen, the Norfolk County Advisory Board is similar to the way the RTM works, where there's a finance committee, they make a presentation, you go through the budget. Anyone who's sat through town meetings knows I'm not shy to get up and talk, but at the same point, I'm not just going to go up and pontificate. If I don't have something to say, I'm not going to go up there and just waste time. That about sums it up. I just want to thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. All right, and thank you again. Any discussion, or I would hear a motion from the board. Jim O'Neill.
Yeah. Hey, Rob. Just wanted to thank you for applying for this role. It is a very important role, and frankly, you were the only one who applied for it, and I think you deserve a lot of credit for that. So I just wanted to thank you for doing that. I like what you just said. You and I frequently disagree on things, but I think you and I can actually have a real discussion, and I respect your opinion. And I really appreciate that. And I think you do a fine job actually on the Norfolk County Advisory Board. So you have my support. And again, thank you for volunteering to step forward. I appreciate it.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Anyone else?
I'm ready to make a motion.
Please.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to appoint Robert Damisch to the Norfolk County Advisory Committee for a 1-year term, and thank you.
Thanks, Nancy.
Second that.
We have a motion and a second. We'll proceed via roll call vote. Nancy?
Yes.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Ben? Aye. 4-0-0. Thank you again, Mr. Damisch. We appreciate your involvement in this. Look forward to working with you in the future.
Thanks for your time. Bye.
Take care. Have a good evening. Okay. Moving on to new business. We have first item of new business. Jim Johnson, you want to give us a little background? I see that Carl is here and ready to go.
Carl's been on standby for a while, so thank you, Carl.
Thank you.
The item Carl's been waiting on is the vote to approve location and signage for the right-of-way for North Street and Bubbling Brook Road. This is related to the improvements that 1350 North Street, the daycare, was required to make. Carl's comfortable with the signage, and police have signed off on it. So we're just looking for approval from the select board. Carl, did I miss anything really on that one?
No, Jim, you covered it.
So
Great.
any questions anyone may have?
Great. Let's go through any questions or discussion on this item. Nancy?
All set.
Mark?
No questions.
Jim O'Neill?
And no questions.
Great. Thank you. Any motion?
I will make a motion to approve the location of signage with ROW of North Street and Bubbling Brook Road as presented.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. We'll proceed by roll call vote. Nancy?
Yes.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0-0. Thank you, Carl, for coming on tonight and hanging in there for us. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
All right, moving on to item 2 under new business. Oh, no. Jim Johnson, if you could give us the outline for number 2 there.
So
I'm sorry, that was
on item 3, which is
my fault. Yep, number 3.
Review and vote of proposed updated charge for the Economic Development Commission. Now, I know, Ben, you and Jim both worked on that one. Ashley's kind of helped us out a little bit on it.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and give a rundown on that one, Jim, if you want.
Yeah.
Great. So I spoke with Mark Romeo, who's the chair of the EDC. I shared the current charge with him, shared the updated charge, spoke with him a little bit about it. The idea being that we wanted to change not only the intent of the charge, but also tie it to some documents that are, approved at the town level or have been pursued by, independent experts. And so that would be the language that's in there. It ties us into some of the planning that's been done here in town. So with that, I would take any questions, discussion, or comments. Why don't we start with you, Nancy, please? Jim O'Neill.
Yeah, really not much discussion. I think this is important and I think overdue. And I'm glad that we're taking the initiative to do this, and I support it. Ben, thank you.
Great. Any other comments, Nancy?
I appreciate all the work that you guys did to get this done. Definitely needed to be done, and thank you.
Mark?
I feel the same way. I think it's a good change. Thanks.
Great. Yep. I would entertain a motion.
I will make a motion to approve the updated charge for the Economic Development Commission.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. We'll proceed by roll call vote. Nancy?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Jim?
Aye.
And Ben, aye. That's 4-0-0. And I'd point out that this is really just the first step in the process. I had intimated that I'd discuss with Mark about this and then moving forward, so this will come before the board again, hopefully soon. Moving on to number 4, under new business, we have a vote to sign the September 1st, 2020 state primary warrant.
I'll make a motion to sign the September 1st, 2020 state warrant, primary warrant.
I'll second that.
There's being a motion and a second. We'll proceed to be a roll call vote. Nancy?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Ben? Aye. 4-0-0. Moving on to number 5, under new business, we have a vote to request, a vote request of David and Anne Marie Jenks to use Adams Farm on September 12th, 2020 for a wedding ceremony.
I'll make a motion to approve the request of David and Ann Jenks to use Adams Farm on September 12th, 2020 for a wedding ceremony.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. We'll proceed with roll call vote. Nancy?
Yes.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Ben? Aye. 4-0-0.
And just a note on that one and the next one, IFA has reached out to both of these groups who've asked to use the area and just said, we need to be mindful of the requirements as far as group gatherings and everything, and that it could change. So these people are well aware that, this is all subject to the regulations staying the same, but it could change at the drop of a dime. So they're aware of it.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right. And then number 6 under new business, a vote to request by Liz Burgess to use Adams Farm on August 31st, 2020 for a yearbook signing.
Before I make the motion, I just want to say this is such a great creative use and idea, considering, the year got shut down for everybody and everything changed, that, great job, Liz. And really, really nice for everybody. I'll make a motion to approve the request of Liz Burgess to use Adams Farm on August 31st, 2020 for a yearbook signing.
I'll second that.
And there's a motion and a second. We'll proceed to be a roll call vote. Nancy?
Yes.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Ben? Aye. 4-0-0. It's approved. Number 7 on the new business, vote request of Bike to the Beach to use town roads on September 5th, 2020 for a charity ride for Autism Speaks.
I will make a motion to approve the request of Bike to the Beach to use town roads on September 5th, 2020 for a charity ride for Autism Speaks.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. We'll proceed via roll call vote. Nancy?
Yes.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Ben, aye. 400 is approved. And number 8 under new business. Jim Johnson, you have additional info on that?
Sure, just some background on this one. This came up towards the end of the day yesterday. Marilyn stopped down and asked, do we have, she couldn't find the vote of the board to authorize me as a tax title custodian. The first part of today, we spent, myself, Eva, Patrick, Liz, some time going through old records because I know we had the authorization to do it years ago with the Superfund site. We just couldn't find the minutes. So after talking to town council, Mark Rich and Lauren Goldberg, they suggested we place this item on the agenda since we had the meeting tonight and we have the closing supposedly on both of the tax title properties on noon on Thursday, just to cover all of our bases and authorize me to sign all the documents and to serve as a tax title custodian. So that's kind of why this was added more as a last minute item, just to cover all of our bases.
I can make the motion if you're ready, Ben.
Yes, please.
I'll make a motion to confirm the appointment of the town administrator as the tax title custodian and to further to ratify, validate, and confirm any past actions of the town administrator as a tax title custodian, and further to authorize the town administrator to sign all documents and take all necessary actions related to the sale of tax title properties.
I'll second that.
Being that we have a motion and a second, we proceed via roll call vote. Nancy?
Yes.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Ben, aye. 400. Marilyn, thank you for being on with us tonight. I appreciate that, and I appreciate all the work you put in today digging all this up. I know it was a last minute deal, so thank you for that. All right. Who would like to take us through the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion that we accept a gift with gratitude from Donna Sherman for the Walpole Trails Committee in the amount of $50.
I'll second that.
With a motion and a second, we'll proceed via roll call vote. Nancy?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Ben, aye. 400 is approved. And Jim Johnson?
Sure. Okay, so a couple of items to cover on this. Let me pull it up. Sure. Corona update. At this time, there are 263 total confirmed positive cases in Walpole. We have 260 cases that have completed monitoring. We have 3 active cases right now. Storm update, and I just actually added this in a few minutes ago. We currently have about 991 households in Walpole without power. According to Rick Mattson, things seems to be settling down a bit. Baker Street, Carriage Lane, Common Street, North Street near Northwood are closed due to wire issues. Eversource is in and aware of the incidents. They have a crew of 2 parks guys who stayed on. They're going to be on past midnight on our end. Water system's in good shape. Only 2 outages that are going to be resolved soon, and they're on backup generators. So that's where we are with the storm for today. Ashley pursued her community development block grant. She successfully partnered with a few other area communities. Walpole was able to get $90,000 for our share. We were able to award micro business grants, which are businesses of 5 or fewer employees. The grants could be up to $10,000 per business. The funds can be put towards payroll, rent, and other expenses to offset the impact of COVID-19. The application period is open until the end of August. She's already reached out to area businesses and has 32 businesses that are here in Walpole that are interested in pursuing something here. There might be a second round that will come up later in September or so. That's to be determined, and 9,000 of that was awarded to the food pantry, and I believe Bill is making the determination as to whether or not they're going to pursue that. So great work from Ashley. I'm happy that she's out there pounding the pavement and getting some money for area businesses. Town meeting, we've already started to prepare for town meeting. I have a draft warrant that's set right now. You know, a couple things still up in the air. Departments have submitted their capital budgets, and I'm going through them now. I don't anticipate we're going to have much money for capital, because I think any undesignated fund balance that we'll have on hand, a lot of it, per my recommendation, I'd like to see it go towards the stabilization and savings. We currently have about 20 plus articles on the warrant right now. So maybe next week or on the 18th, I can dig into that a little bit further with the board. I should have mentioned this when Marilyn was still on. I received her formal retirement notice this week. It's not unexpected. She had let me know about a year ago that she was going to be retiring soon. She's done a great job working for us for the past 7+ years. And I'm not sure if we didn't have her, we wouldn't have been able to do all the borrowing and the creative financing that we did to get all the buildings constructed in recent years. So more to come on that one. But, you know, I know we have a capable bench, just as the police department does here in the finance department. Jody and Lisa have been doing a great job, and I know they'll be able to step in with some training from Maryland over the next couple months. And reopening public buildings. Town Hall, Blackburn, Police Department, Fire Department have all been reopened the past few weeks. We are getting some traffic in here. We haven't had any issues as far as people not wearing masks. We've been really cautious. People have been staying behind the plexiglass, and it's actually been going very well. We're opening the library on a very limited basis. We're going to kind of ramp that up to the beginning of September. By September 7th, they have to be open 59 hours per the Mass Board of Library Commissioners. So we're going to slowly get there. Senior Center is slowly ramping up outdoor activities. We haven't started anything inside. I believe she's offering 1 or 2 programs this week, just outdoors. And they're all going to be, yeah, I think it's 14 feet apart instead of the 6 feet apart. So, and some boards have started to inquire about in-person meetings. A few boards specifically, I know the planning board met at the high school. They've already asked for another date at the high school. You know, that's one of the few places that we can adhere to the social distancing standards and have enough space for people to actually start to come in for hearings and everything. So I'm not sure when or if your board wants to start to talk about that, but something I wanted to throw out there. And that's it for me.
Great. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate that. Any discussion or questions from the board? Show via hands. Being none, we'll move. Oh, sorry, Jim O'Neill.
Yeah, just on that last point, I'm not sure, at least from where I sit, I'm not sure we're ready to start coming back in just yet, Jim. I don't know what the rest of the members feel, but you know, it feels as though we're seeing a little spikiness in the numbers right now in Massachusetts, and from where I'm sitting, this is working okay. And so I'm not thinking anytime real soon that we'll be back in, but I guess I'd like to hear other points of view from the board.
Okay. Thank you.
I think that we should start looking at a plan as to how it's going to look when we do, and maybe start getting in the planning stages of it, and then, you know, riding this, what is, you know, happening right now, and a little bit of a spike. You know, maybe we should be looking for an end of September date of what we think, but depending on what happens between now and then. But, you know, and I'm sure Jim is already thinking of how we're going to do this and start his planning and things like that. But, you know, I would say end of September is when we should be looking to be progressing that way.
Great. Thank you, Nancy. Yes, Jim.
One other thing that I think we need to think about is, you know, what the fall town meeting. And, you know, I know it's not us, it's Dan, but it's probably not too soon to start thinking about what that plan's going to look like. Is it going to be the same as we did the last time around, or are we going to try and do something indoors or what? But just something we should probably put on the radar.
So yeah. Touching on that, Ben, if you don't mind, I have reached out to Dan. I think he's thinking about it. you'll note when you get the warrant, I have highlighted the time and place for the meeting because I don't think the board should sign. I think we should close the warrant, give it to me, give it to town council to review for a couple of weeks. But I don't think we should sign it right away because what we've historically done is we close it, wait 2 or 3 weeks after town council reviews it, and then, close it. I think we should leave it open as long as we can legally be able to do so and work with Dan to come up with a place. We have booked the high school auditorium and the high school football field for a few Saturdays in October already, and the auditorium for our standard third Monday in October. So, I think it worked pretty well in the football field. People were able to spread out. We'd obviously have to start. 10 o'clock start time is I think a fine start time on a Saturday in October. It definitely won't be as hot, I don't think. And we're going to have more than 3 articles to consider, that's for sure.
All right, thank you. Yeah, and to that end, Jim, let's definitely keep the board up to date on that at every meeting that we have here. I definitely don't want to leave it too long that the warrant, is out there. I want to get it finalized so that anything particularly zoning articles that need to go through public hearings can be assessed as well. So I think we have all the information now. At this point, we need to make a decision, but certainly willing to support the moderator, in whatever he thinks. So I think the sooner the solution we can get, the better there. Fantastic. Anything else?
Do you want me to make a motion for the minutes?
Please.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of July 14th, 2020.
I'll second that.
We have a motion, we have a motion and a second. We'll proceed via roll call vote. Nancy?
Yes.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
And Ben, aye. 400 is approved. Okay, at this point in the meeting, we'll be moving into executive session, and we will be ending the live feed, and we will be coming back at our next meeting to address anything that comes out of the executive session at that point. We need to move to a different Zoom channel to have that executive session. So the first time that we've done this in the Zoom era, so in order to have it be secure, we'll move to the new channel. So we'll be moving to executive session for purpose 3, which is to discuss the strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation. An open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. And I need my other.
So roll call vote to go into executive session?
Yeah, I didn't know if I just didn't have too many things open here. All right. So a motion that the Board of Selectmen will enter into an executive session for the purpose stated, with the board now returning to open session at the conclusion of the executive session.
Second.
Second that.
We have a motion and a second. We'll proceed with roll call votes to go into executive session. Nancy?
Yes.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Ben? Aye. 400. We will now move into executive session. Thank you and good night.